Hi guys, I just finished grading your extended bibliographies and I wanted to make this video for everybody so that I could talk a little bit about formatting and APA more specifically for this project. I didn't make individual videos for everyone because I felt like I would be making the same comments over and over again. So what I did was I just made a list of all of the comments that I wrote on everybody's drafts or everybody's extended bibliographies, and I'm going to go over, I think, most of those. And if there's anything that's, really specific for a specific comment that you got back for your extended bibliography, and I don't talk about it here, but you have more questions, please, of course, don't hesitate to email me. I'd be happy to talk about it. So the first thing that I want to do in this video is look at the rubric, because I think this is going to kind of give an explanation about, where I might have taken off points. And I always like to go through the rubric with everyone individually in my videos. So I'm just going to kind of go over it as a whole with the class. So for the first category of the rubric, it's formatting and citations. And this part was worth 80 points. And so, if we're looking at that, that tells us that 80% of this assignment was being graded on formatting. I'm not necessarily concerned with how good your sources are. Like, I focused on that a lot with your MLA project, but here you could have all sorts of different types of sources, but really I'm more focused on formatting since this is a new style for a lot of people. I wanted that to kind of be the heavy part of this assignment. So 80 points. How do I, figure out how to deduct points? Well, if you made one error, it's -1 point. But if you made the same error a number of times, I would take off, let's say you made the same error twice, I would take off 2 points. If you made the same error 3 times, I would take off 3 points. But if you made the same error 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100 times, I would only take off 3 points. So the max number of points for making the same error that you can get deducted is 3 points. So that's kind of how this is graded. These errors stem from not having the first initial, like having the last name in the first name as opposed to the last name in the first initial. Not capitalizing, or I guess capitalizing the titles of the articles where you're only supposed to capitalize the first word in the title, centering, not centering citations or centering citations, having error, like things missing from your citation or incorrect information in the citation, and then not having like proper page formatting. So the only place I really wasn't taking off any points in terms of formatting is the running head, the header information, because that wasn't a requirement of this assignment. However, I did make comments if your document showed the header, but you needed to make changes. I made comments on those so that you can improve for your final paper. So that's sort of how I took off points, or where you'll see points being deducted here in the formatting section. I also have page layout. Really, most of you are doing a really good job with that. I think there were just a couple of people who are still kind of need a little help with hanging indents, and I'll talk about that in this video as well. And then the title, basically pretty straightforward from the document. I wanted it to be titled Extended Bibliography. A lot of you had a subtitle, primary sources, secondary sources. That was great. Somebody put references, wonderful. So I wanted, if I saw extended bibliography on your document, we're good to go. Otherwise, if it was titled something else, it was just 2 points out of 5 instead of 5 points out of 5. And then deduction. So what I always do when I first grade these extended bibliographies is I go through and I count the number of citations that you have for primary sources. I'm looking for 20. I count the number of citations that you have for your online articles or any kind of secondary source that's not a scholarly article. And then I count the number of scholarly article citations that you have. And sometimes people will say that something is a scholarly article, but it's actually not, and that will not count as a citation for a scholarly article. So if anything is missing, it's -3 per missing source. So if you didn't have a primary source, if you didn't have a secondary source, if you didn't have one of the scholarly articles, It would just be -3 per missing source. Also, with your primary sources, I was looking for 3 different types of sources. So, and most of you did that, not just all Facebook posts or not just all Instagram posts or whatever, 3 different types: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that would count. Video file, blog post, and Reddit, that would count. So if there was a type of source missing, let's say you only had Facebook and Instagram, then that'd be one type of source missing, which would be -3. Okay, so that's kind of how this rubric is broken down. Now I want to go in and take a look at a document that I have created that is going to reflect APA format for the 4 types of citations that I think most of you had. So you had primary sources, which you can see here, and then again down here. I'm missing something in here. Let me type this in really quickly. Video file. Okay, now we're good. So you can see primary source here and primary source here. And I'm going with 2 different primary sources to show you, because in one instance we have a primary source, and I grabbed these from random students' documents. The one primary source has a username. Another primary source has a last name and a first initial. So I wanted to show the difference here between the 2. So if we're taking a look at primary source citations, for the most part, your primary source citations is going to have all the following information. Now, if something's missing, we'll talk about what you would put there. You're going to have a username, or you're going to have a last name and a first initial. When you have a last name and a first initial, it's separated by a comma, and there's a period at the end, whereas when you just have a username, you put the period at the end of the username. In both instances, you have the year, a comma, the month, and the day that information was posted. So in this example, this was a video from YouTube. When was that posted? February 24th, 2018. In this example, it was a post on Instagram, March 24th, 2018. Then with your primary source, you're going to have a couple of things. It kind of varies. It depends on what kind of primary source you have. But for the most part, people's primary sources are going to be posts, like tweets, Instagram posts where you post a picture and have a little caption. You might have Facebook posts, Facebook comments, Facebook notes, Reddit posts, Reddit comments, things like that. So the content in the post is usually what's going to be here immediately following the date. Now, there's the only real kind of exemplification, that's not the right word. Exception, that's the right word. The only real exception to that rule is when you have like a video file from YouTube, and then you would post the title of the video there. Okay, following the content or the title, you're going to have a tag, and that tag is in the square brackets, and in the tag, you're going to say what type of source it is. So in this instance, we have Instagram post. Now, I'm not certain that APA actually has an Instagram citation style. I know they have Facebook, I know they have Twitter, and I know they have like video file, like you see the tag down here. So what I've done is adapted this citation so that it reflects what I would assume APA would say would be correct here. Like, for example, APA says if you're citing something from Twitter, a post on Twitter, you would put tweet in here. If you're citing a post on Facebook, you'd write Facebook post. If you're citing a Facebook comment, you would write Facebook comment. So for me, it just logically follows that this might say Instagram post. And then we have the date retrieved, the date from, and the URL. The date is not required. However, with your primary sources, it makes a lot of sense to have the date in there because primary sources can be deleted. The person, Aaron Jaws Hamoki, who posted this Instagram post could easily go in and delete this post And then if I'm trying to look for it later and, maybe I'm calling you out and saying, well, the post isn't there, this is one of those instances where it makes sense to have the day that it was posted, because if the day is, a year ago, then maybe I'm not able to find it now because this user has deleted their post. Same thing is also true for the video file. You might cite something in your paper that's later been deleted, so it's good to explain when you retrieved it, to kind of, I guess, explain. It's like Wikipedia. You went and looked at Wikipedia, but then 2 weeks later it was gone. So you went and looked at YouTube, or you went and looked at Instagram, and 2 weeks later something was gone. But this kind of, tells me, hey, I looked at it. It was there when I looked 2 weeks ago. Okay, so then of course you have this phrase retrieved from and the URL so that I can go back and find it very easily. And that's one of the things I really like about APA format, is that I can find that information. Okay, so the next type of source that I want to talk about is actually the online article secondary source. So for many of you, actually most of you, if not all of you, for your secondary sources, your credible sources, you guys chose to find online articles posted on like the New York Times, here from this example, Forbes, The Atlantic, CNN, all sorts of websites all over the internet that are, for the most part, credible. And here's an example of how to format that source. You, of course, start with the author's last name followed by the first initial, just like, you would see here in the primary source if you had a name instead of a username. And then same thing, you have the date, year, comma, month, and day. So APA requires that we write dates a little bit differently than in MLA format. And then you have the title of the article that you read. And so here it's a little different from primary sources. In the primary source, you might have cited the entire content of whatever that Instagram, Facebook, tweet, whatever that post was. But when you have your secondary sources, you're just citing the title. You don't want to cite any of the content within the article, just the article title itself, because the assumption is that the article is going to be very long. You can't cite or write down the whole thing, so you just put the title. And that's something that you've seen before in MLA format. So it should be pretty straightforward for most of you. And then, and this is something that a lot of you guys missed, then you write the title of the website, magazine, newspaper, whatever that source is. You write the title in italics immediately following the title of the article. So here we know that 4 ways the hashtag Never Again Students Create Impact article was written in Forbes. And then again, we have retrieved from URL. This student chose to incorporate the date. I think that that's really just kind of covering your bases. Having the date that you retrieved it makes a lot of sense. Again, it's not a requirement, but there it is. Okay, so that is an example of an online article format. And then we have, finally, the scholarly article. And so I think this is where enough people struggled with, because the scholarly article, according to APA format, has so many more details that you need to cite that an online article just does not have. And a lot of you were citing your scholarly articles in the same way that you cited your online articles, like your credible secondary sources, but not scholarly sources. So you want to think a little bit differently. And the reason that the scholarly source is cited differently is because it's generally published in an academic journal, which has an issue number and a volume number and a page range, whereas online articles don't have that information. So it's important to include the proper information here. And a lot of times, especially when you're finding articles for APA type research, you're going to see that there's multiple authors. When we have multiple authors, it's done a little bit differently than MLA. With MLA, we had last name, comma, first name, but then first name, last name, first name, last name, first name, last name. Here, we just keep the same formatting. So We have last name, comma, first initial, period, then a comma, and then here's the next person. Last name, comma, first and second initial. I'm getting an emergency alert that a tornado warning on my phone. Okay, cool. Interesting. So then you have an ampersand, which is this little funny symbol here. It stands for and, but it's called an ampersand. And then the final person. After you list the author or authors, then you list the year. The month and day are not necessary, generally because those will be unknown. For the most part, scholarly articles only ever publish the year that they were published. You have the title of the article itself. Again, this is not any content from the article, it's the title of the article. Now, something to know about titles, and I think a lot of you just miss this minor APA detail. Titles of articles in APA format, the only thing that's capitalized is the first word, and then if there's any proper nouns, like a person's name, a location, or a business or something like that. So here we see that the word "the" is capitalized, the role of the media and body image concerns among women. Then we have a colon, which tells us that this title has a subtitle. And so when you have a subtitle, the first word in the subtitle is capitalized. Here we have A, that's the first word in the subtitle, so we give it capital letter, a meta-analysis of experimental and co-relational studies. Then, following the title and a period, we have the journal where this citation or where this source was published. So we know that this title was published here in Psychological Bulletin, which is an academic journal. It's italicized. A lot of you, I think, maybe not a lot of you, a couple of you forgot to italicize your journal titles. Or even like down here, Forbes, you forgot to italicize your magazine titles. Also italicized is the volume number. The issue number is housed not in italics, but it's housed in parentheses, followed by a comma. And then the page range, where this source is inside of the scholarly journal, that page range is written at the end, and there's a period. If you have the DOI number, you can put it, but if not, you can leave it off. So that's an example of a scholarly article. There's more information than an online article, so you'll notice there's a big difference between those two citations. Let me check my list over here and see if I've covered everything. There's one thing I know I still need to talk about. In terms of page layout, take a peek at how this looks. So the first line of the citation is all the way to the left. Most of you guys were really doing a great job with that. And then the second, third, fourth, however many other lines there are, all of those are indented. And the easiest way to make that happen is to highlight your citation, go to this little arrow down here in the paragraph section. So I'm on the Home tab. I'm in paragraph, and I go to this little extended arrow. It takes me to paragraph settings, go to special, and select hanging. I think most of you probably figured that out because a lot of your pages looked really good, but there are a couple that I think we're having a little bit of trouble with that hanging indent, so I wanted to show you guys what that looks like as well. Now, as far as the APA header goes, I don't think I talked about this. The header is going to look really different, and the most important thing when you're formatting your header is once you're in the header, so I had to double click to get here, you want to make sure that, I'm selecting all so that I can put this back, you want to make sure that you have this box checked, different first page. So then what you can have is running head on the first page, but if I jump down to my second page, I can remove the phrase running head and just have extended bibliography. Okay, so remember, I selected this box, different first page, and because I did that, I can have extended bibliography in all caps with my page number on the second page, and I can have running head with a colon on the first page. If you don't select that box, you can't get rid of running head. Or if you get rid of it, it'll remove it from the first page as well. So again, that's in the design tab, different first page. It's under options. That's where you want to make sure that box is checked. Okay. And if you're having trouble with formatting, my strongest suggestion is just to go straight to YouTube and check out an APA format YouTube video. All right, you guys, I think that covers everything that I want to talk about for extended bibliographies. Again, if there's anything specific in your document that you have questions about, why did I lose points here, whatever, please email me. I understand you have those types of questions, and I want to be transparent, so I'd be happy to talk about it with anybody. Otherwise, I'll be working on some week 10 videos later on today, and I'll post those into Blackboard so that you can have them for next week. So next week is our big discussion. Hopefully you guys are working on getting those handouts posted to the discussion board. Alrighty, have a great rest of your weekend.